NBA awards across this table, I feel like, the MVP conversation has become so toxic to the point that
every year.
Yeah, it becomes that every year because the fans of a certain player that maybe might not win, they get really agitated that their player might not win. I do have Luka as MVP.
Welcome.
But Jokic is deserving.
Oh, yeah.
And, you cannot try to diminish Jokic's case to just try to prop up Luka because they're both exceptional.
It's like last year when the Joel Embiid fans were kind of putting their propaganda together as why he should be the MVP. And then you had the Nikola Jokic stands kind of saying, well, we're doing this out of kind of pity. But it's so hard to argue the opposite way because if you are an Embiid fan arguing against Nikola Jokic, how much basis do you really have? Similar this year where I say similar where it's Nikola Jokic, but it's completely different because Luka Doncic has been dominant all season long, and he hasn't been trying to plead his case, no campaign. The teammates of his are wearing shirts, Pravi MVP. That's been pretty cool of them, but he just plays his game. He's not out here saying, I want the MVP. I'm actively trying to go after it. I feel like that's kind of where Joel Embiid kind of lost it, or, the fans' sympathy for him because he was vocally talking about how badly he wanted. It's so hard to argue against Nikola Jokic. Advanced numbers love him. I mean, forget about it. Box scores numbers love him. You watch the game, the way that he dominates an offense, the way that he facilitates his offense at the center position. I solely go to Luka Doncic for my MVP is because, well, we're talking about in terms of most games played, he is the league leader in scoring.
Are you going to flip or is this real?
No, this is legit.
Oh, okay.
No, the one thing I've been consistent on is Luka Doncic being my MVP.
I know it's like, gotcha.
No, that's been the one thing Dallas Mavericks related I've been constant on. Okay. This is the MVP of the National Basketball Association. Most points, most assists, if I'm not mistaken. Also, on top of it, one of the league's best rebounders. He is the league's best rebounder at the point guard position. His 3-point shooting's immaculate. His field goal percentage is immaculate for the volume of shots that he's taking. And he's climbed from the play-in all the way to the 5th seed. What more does he have to do to solidify his MVP case? I get it. Nikola Jokic obviously is deserving. This is the one instances where they did co-MVP. Shit, I think all fans would understand and kind of accept that. But if I had to give one vote to one individual, there's no more valuable player this season to me than Luka Doncic. I understand you take Jokic off. The Nuggets obviously aren't the same team. But you legitimately take Luka off this team. I think we're talking about a lottery team in the Dallas Mavericks. He just means so much to their offense, so much to their team. His usage is insane. Of course, to me, this has to be the MVP.
I think it's both. It's just Jokic means so much to Denver that if you take him off, they're going to be one of the worst teams in the league. Mm-hmm. The rosters that... Well, they're going to be a lottery team. Not one of the worst teams.
They're going to be a lottery team. Yeah.
Jamal is still good enough.
You have Kyrie.
Worst team.
In the West,
Case in terms of role players, though, Jamal,
they have better role players.
Yeah, but I think that's easy, too.
But you can have role players and still, if you don't have your guy, you're not going to be that
good. They'd both be bad teams.
I think the one difference with Jokic not on the team would be the play of Aaron Gordon. I think Aaron Gordon is so perfect with the Nuggets because of how smart and savvy Nikola Jokic is.
Now, how does he fit if he's not a great shooter?
That's exactly,
he kind of gets his looks around Jokic around the rim.
For sure. His luxury of being able to stay in the dunking spot. No, most def. I just mean specifically Aaron Gordon, if I had to single out one person, because he gets to hover in that dunker spot and just wait for Nikola Jokic to make his decision. Am I going to go up for a layup or am I going to draw this double team and throw up this lob? I feel like his play would be hindered the most on the offensive side, but defensively, he'll obviously still be able to handle his own. But you lose the best player in the league, naturally you'll be worse.
It's just I've seen Aaron Gordon when he was without Nikola Jokic, and he just wasn't talking about him.
No, he was on the Magic.
Yeah, and he wasn't viewed as a player that was really that good, and he's fit so perfectly in Denver. Luka, to me, this MVP race has reminded me a lot of 2019 when Giannis won it over James Harden. Giannis was the first seed in the East. James Harden was, I think, the 5th or 4th seed in the West. It was a 6-game difference between the two. The Bucks won 60, the Rockets won 54. And Harden had a historic scoring season. He was averaging 36, 7. Chris Paul was hurt. Clint Capella was hurt. I feel like James Harden that year, he got robbed. He should have won the MVP. This year, I think Jokic has a stronger case than Giannis that season. But with Luka, it's just, when we talk about MVP, it's, what player had the most impact on the league that season? And I think that's been Luka Doncic. He's had more special performances than Jokic this year. He had a 70-point game, fourth highest scoring performance in NBA history, first player to ever average 33, 9, and 9, first in 25-point games, first in 35-point games, first in 40-point games. What he's been having to do every single night with injuries to his team, because he's had more injuries than Jokic, I feel like he is the MVP. He's been the most valuable to his team because he's been more available, and he hasn't always had a healthy roster. You know, the Mavericks, when they're healthy and they're on the court, this is one of the best teams in the West that could be vying for that top 3 seed in the Western Conference. So I think if people are boggling it down to just Jokic is winning more, I feel like that's a bad way to look at it. I think Luka has just been more impactful this year, and he has been the most valuable player.
Well, before you guys go, another reason why I feel like we could see Jokic secure it outside of the obvious he's playing amazing basketball is last year probably should have been a 3-time MVP, three-time back-to-back. And you kind of missed the boat on that one, especially the way that he ended the playoffs. Of course, Finals MVP, championship ring. And then this year, he obviously kept that same level of play, maybe a little bit better, honestly, if that's even possible. And so you have your team at top of the Western Conference yet again. You're still the most dominant player in basketball. It's going to be hard to see him not take home, but my MVP would be, of course, Luka.
Who's yours, Riv?
It was tough because I felt like both guys deserved it. You know, when Drew, you made a good point. Like when you talk about like advanced statistics, talk about value over replacement, you know, offense, blah blah, EPM, all that nonsense. Jokic. The Joker. He's just so good, and he's like kind of Steph Curry in the sense where he's just shattering these advanced numbers. But of course, like when you watch the game, you see how valuable both guys are to the team. You see with Luka, you know, his team wouldn't be where they're at without him, you know, kind of backpacking his team. And then Kyrie and the boys made a move at the deadline. Now his team's been amazing. For me, I think, like, and I looked up a statistic before where like there's not many fifth seeds that's won MVP. You know, they usually hand it to the guys who are top 3. Sometimes 4. If you've done something really historic or something we haven't seen, like the Westbrook triple-double from a guard, they'll give it to a 6 seed or something like that.
That year could have been Harden too.
Yeah, like for me, the Joker for me is the MVP. I was
gonna say, wasn't his first MVP a 6 seed, Nikola?
Yeah, he had a triple-double. What's the first or the second?
That was his first MVP.
He had like a triple-double as a center. Insane. 6 seed, players wasn't healthy. I think for me, the MVP is Joker. I think him getting the number 1 seed kind of solidified. And I know Jamal Murray is great. I'm not saying he's not, but the Joker is really just the engine to this team. He's one of the greatest offensive engines we've ever seen in our lifetime. Probably one of the greatest in NBA history, just with the way he can control the game, the flow of the game, how he can get his players like open, how he can get into the post and work you out. He can work in the pick and roll, be that guy to dribble or handoffs. Like he can do everything. He's like 5-6 different players in one, and it's insane how impactful he is. It's hard to really just say he deserves it over Luka or Luka deserves it over him. I think both guys are deserving. I think it's like a 1A, 1B. If we can share the award like we used to do with Rookie of the Year, I would say both of these guys could deserve it. But for me, I think most valuable player to a team is best player on one of the best teams in the league. That is the argument that they've been consistent with. So I got the Joker as the MVP.
First year, 3rd seed. Second MVP, 6th seed.
Okay. So
second year, 6. Got it.
I think good points. You know, Luka. If you want to have Luka as
Sabonis
MVP,
is also number 6 in the MVP award tracker.
Shout out to Sabonis. He'll be on one of my All NBA teams.
Respect him.
It's nuts, but I ain't gonna say nothing.
6 is a little crazy.
Struggling for a playing spot.
I would have right now have Jokic as the MVP.
West is good.
I think either are fine. Like you said, if this is a year where it's co-MVP, although I feel like that's kind of whack. Just give it to one of these 2 dudes. But it's become a 2-man race. You know, SGA for a while, I think, was probably at the lead at one point. Then with the injury and kind of his diminishing play because of the injury more than anything over a couple week stretch, I think he fell out. Then Giannis with the Bucks, their struggle since Doc Rivers has been hired. He was never really in the conversation. Outside of that, you know, Tatum, I know Brunson's been getting some love lately, but realistically, it's the 2-man race between Jokic and Luka Doncic right now. There's really no way to like argue one over the other. Any point you make for Jokic, you can make for Luka. Any argument you can make for Luka, you can make for Jokic. I think the Nuggets securing the best seed in the West, or most likely they got the big win over Minnesota last night. That's really the deciding factor. Could be a cop-out answer because, sure, the Mavs dealt with some injuries. Jamal Murray has been hurt for this last week or 2 as well. But I just think having the best record in the NBA is probably the tiebreaker between the two. If it was the other way around and Luka was the number 1 seed and Denver was the 5 seed, I'd probably be going with Luka Doncic. But when you have these two players who are pretty clearly, to me, I shouldn't say clearly, I think Giannis is in that top 3 as well and Embiid healthy. But this season have been clearly the 2 best players in the NBA. What they do for their teams, like we mentioned, you go from these players and you're legit a team that could go to the finals to becoming a lottery team that no one really respects in the NBA when it comes playoff time. So what they mean to their team can't be understated. I would have Jokic right now, but I can't be mad at Luka.